Troops, here we are. Easter's over. That's done. It was a thing. It's gone. On to the next thing. Today, I welcome onto the show a guy who's at the forefront of leadership. It's Nathan Simmonds. Nathan, how are you doing, sir?
Amazing. Ecstatic to be here and actually having this conversation in a recording and sharing some of this content up top with you guys.
Brilliant. Nathan, we met on LinkedIn. We use the power of LinkedIn to connect. First question is, how powerful is LinkedIn? And if you're not on it, why you should be on it as a business?
Everything that I'm starting to understand about social media, and I am such a novice in this space, if you're putting anything on Facebook, predominantly because of the algorithm, something like 2% of your following is only ever going to see your posts.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Whereas at this point in time, everybody talks about LinkedIn being what Facebook was like 10 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
The moment you put a post on there, everyone in your followers, your connection sees it. The moment someone in that group interacts with it, that then shows up on their followers. So if you're posting the right content with the right points and the right elements and attractions in it, you're going to get coverage up to 2-3 million people if you're hitting the right points. That's the power of it.
I've quickly sort of mastered LinkedIn, and what I'll say about that is I haven't mastered nothing. What I've done is I'm just a good human being, and I take time to read other people's posts and interact with people and leave engaging comments and questions and looking to build rapport. And I see people putting out content saying how to master LinkedIn, how to do this, how to do that. And for me, it's quite simple. Ask a question, get an answer, ask another question. Do you agree with that sort of way of thinking?
I do. And I guess it's asking the right question.
Yeah.
Because when you say that, the thing that ticks in my head is clickbaiting. The old techniques of going into someone else's Facebook.
Yeah.
Someone else, it's basically fishing someone else's pond. And it's not okay. There's atypically the bro code or whatever you want to call it. You don't go and fish in another man's pond or another woman's pond. It's just not okay. So it's making sure that we're asking questions that are poignant, that are relevant, that are supporting people's thinking, that are genuinely engaging with them in a way where you want to add value. You're not there with an intention, I'm going to turn this person into a customer, or I'm going to take this person's money. I'm going to ask them a question because I want them to think differently. I want them to move themselves forward, and I want to share something that's of use. And that contribution and connection.
That's a big thing. But I see a lot of people put out a lot of great content on LinkedIn, and some of it doesn't really get the traction. And I think, I wonder why they don't get the traction. And then I sort of do a little bit of homework on them, and I think, they never ever comment on anyone else's stuff, and they never, even this is criminal. If someone comments on your post, to leave it open and not go back and at least, whatever, thank them for the comment, or reply to the comment, or like the comment. If someone said hello to you in the street and you didn't say hello back, and the next time they saw you, they ain't saying hello to you again. And it's the same principles, isn't it? Sort of on average, what time do you spend on LinkedIn per day?
It's a mixture of making sure some of the right times, and you can Google that for sure. The other parts is I go in the morning, I'm looking around about 9 o'clock. So I'm using one tool when I'm focused, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Using buffer. So I'm pre-loading posts to go up on. So it might be my free email course. Right. So I've remembered in all the flurry of what we're doing, I've got a free email course, boom, I'll put that on there, post it. We've got the charity event that we're doing. Okay, I'll put that onto that. So that's going to come through. So every day there's going to be a post coming through either at 9 o'clock or 5 o'clock in it. So that's coming in. But then, like you say, it's making and doing that at say on a Sunday night for an hour, hour and a half, getting that content ready. Then during the week, you can go in and then you can start commenting and replying to the responses and the interactions that are going on.
Yeah.
Ideally, for me, 30 to 40 minutes, 45 minutes a day. But like I say, you're preloading on the Sunday. So you're getting ahead of the curve and you're not going in on a daily basis. Because it's too easy. We know with social media, it starts to then become antisocial. And what I mean by that is you go into it, you get caught up in a rabbit hole of someone else's whatever doing this and blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, you spent 2.5, 3 hours there, and that time hasn't been productive because it's not focused on delivering value, commenting on the right people, supporting the people in your team, in your arena, and vice versa. And you're just, and you're not even getting work done at the same time.
I think LinkedIn has definitely changed. Now, I've been on it a long time, and I didn't understand it at all when I first got onto it, and I thought it was fairly boring. But actually now, I actually really, really enjoy LinkedIn. For one, I never see any negativity. Why do you think it is that we don't see negativity on LinkedIn like we do see on other social media platforms?
One, because front end, it's a atypically professional platform.
Yeah.
And it's super easy to call people out because of the reach you've got. So when you looked at the whole hashtag Me Too situation and the levels of sexism and, or misogynistic behaviors, you still see elements of that in LinkedIn. At the same time, people are very quick to call it out when it's happening. Yeah. And people are quickly kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not vilified is the right word, but it's people see it and it's highlighted very quickly. And the moment that someone puts that sort of thing on there, the volume of comments and views that post gets is huge.
Yeah, I feel there's a person I used to be connected with now. I feel like they played that card because they would put like a screenshot of someone who maybe sent them a what would class as an inappropriate comment about how they looked, but then would sort of use that comment as a post and say, how is this still acceptable? And obviously that thread would get loads of traction. And I thought, you're literally playing up to it. Do you know what I mean? Like in some ways, these people are doing you a favor by coming on and leaving you this, oh, I think you're beautiful, or I think I'd love to take you out. That sort of, which isn't what LinkedIn's for. But then instead of just deleting it and blocking that person, actually used it to create a bit of a fire on their own thread, which made more and more people see it. And I thought, is that really clever, or is that sort of a little bit badger baiting, which I thought was a bit weird.
And again, it's making sure you're getting the right the right intentions behind certain things.
Yeah,
and I think still, regardless. When I'm talking to people about communication and teaching communication, people say, oh, but you can't tell what someone means when they write something. Oh, you can't tell what someone means when you read it. And actually, I think you can. When you read it, there is a certain element of how I'm feeling when I read it. So I need to be aware of my own emotions. And also when you're reading the content, okay, what is this actually doing? Okay, actually, then having a look at the comments that are underneath it. What are the person's responses to this?
Yeah.
Are they using it as debating? Are they using it to, degrade someone else? Or fire their own profile up off the back of this sort of behaviour? And we have to be mindful that when we're putting that sort of stuff out there, you're still adding energy and impetus to that sentiment. You're still kind of advertising and promoting that sort of behaviour in certain people and potentially pushing it more underground.
Yeah.
By stigmatising. Rather than supporting the individuals that's making inappropriate comments, we're actually stigmatising them and forcing them to become more underground with their own behaviours.
Yeah, and there's another interesting one. Another guy who runs another veteran podcast called The H Hour managed to land Nigel Farage as a guest. Now, regardless of what you think of Nigel Farage as a person, if you like his politics, if you don't like his politics, to get a guest like that to come on a podcast, which is, I think, I want to say about 2.5, maybe 3 years old, is huge. Like, that is a big win. How you've managed to get the email into Nigel Farage's inbox and to get 40 minutes of his time is fair play to the H Hour for getting him on. Now, he posted the link on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook. Now, I commented on all 3 platforms, but it was really interesting to see the different comments. So LinkedIn was all very positive, unbelievable, well done. Look forward to listening to it. Well done on getting such a, what would be the right word? Highlighted guest, you know what I mean? Someone who's really, really well known. And then literally Facebook was just like a volume of hate. And I was just sitting there reading the comments and I was just like, wow, some people just can't. They just can't help themselves, can they? They can't just help and go, oh no, I'm going to pile in and I'm going to have my 2 pence. Why do you feel like not the different platforms, why do you feel like people feel the need to have the 2 pence on every single subject?
I think it's human nature. People, I think it's one of those things when you look at social media, it says comment or reply, and it's a box. Nature abhors a vacuum. I think it was, I can't remember if it was Socrates or Aristotle that said this.
Right.
You know, we see this box and we go, oh, I want to put something in there. I want to fill that gap. And people always feel like they, I guess social media as a platform has provided people a space to add that 2 piece worth. And then you've got this kind of safe barrier of, well, I'm on the other side of this keyboard, this side of this screen, I can post this sort of content because I will probably never meet this person in reality. So therefore I can be as inflammatory as I like, derogatory, insulting, and start acting like a troll.
I just found it bizarre, and sort of one of the comments was, you should never ever allow this man a platform, and I thought, that's like a very dangerous, it's almost like you become the thing you set out not to be. You know what I mean? And I think we should listen to people who we disagree with, because, and we should debate people. That's how the modern world, that's how you evolve, isn't it? I always say to people, you should listen to people who you don't like. And even if you don't like them, you should try and understand, because if you ever come to debate them, you need to know what they said. Otherwise, you look like an idiot.
And so the 2 points in leadership is, one is you need to, I can't remember the guy's name that used this reference, is quantum thinking.
Right.
Is the ability to hold 2 opposing thoughts in your head at the same time.
Yeah.
And not be biased about it, and draw the best elements out of each of them, and potentially come up with a third object, which is the action or movement that you're going to make.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And also then when you're negotiating with people and you're listening to an argument, and you're listening to their point of view, is actually taking the time to appreciate what they're saying, find merit in those things, rather than completely discount them and become aggressive about it or inflammatory again.
Yeah.
But extract the key elements out, find the good things they're talking about, because there will be stuff in there that you can then utilize, which then develops your idea even further and allows you to overtake them.
I mean, one thing I would say about the podcast, it was great because he literally just went, right, what do you think of this? And with Nigel Farage being such a powerful speaker and someone who's very articulate in how he speaks, he just went bosh. Do you know what I mean? It was a good listen, and I learned something that I never knew, that he actually had his own battlefield tours company at one point, like taking people over to Flanders Field and Ypres and doing all that sort of stuff. And I was like, that's why you should always listen to people who you maybe don't agree with politically, because you can always find a human element. And again, like leadership style. What do you think makes a good leader? There's different styles of leaders, isn't there? Like there's some people. What was it? There's autocratic. That's do as I say.
Yeah.
Sort of. Laissez-faire. Laissez-faire. That was the French one, wasn't it? As in just get on as you want. Yeah. Okay.
But okay. So for me, leadership is some core elements. One, servant leadership. It comes to the idea of, your team doesn't work for you, you work for them. That's the key element. So I'm here to remove the blocks for these individuals so they can do the best possible work. Why? Yeah. Because atypically, when you're a team leader or an operational leader or whatever, what comes first? The team. It says team leader. It does exactly what it says on the tin. Yeah. So the team always comes first. Therefore, if you're not making them first, and your team leaves you because you're not actually giving them what they need to be successful in whatever environment, they leave. You've no longer got a team, so therefore you're not a leader. So it's just pay attention to what your actual name is and your responsibilities in it. Yeah. I think the next part to leadership that makes it is fundamental, and I've been learning this more and more, is you have to learn to be outstanding and be outside of the current norm. Because in order to be a leader, you have to go that little bit extra. You cannot be doing what the other 95% of people are doing. So you have to get used to be standing out. Yeah. Yeah. And you have to be good at what you're doing. You also have to have a level of conviction, which at the same time, so you separate yourself from the group as a leader mentally because you want to move things forward. You have to choose a course, a conviction that supports the 95% and helps them to move forward, and at the same time be separate from them. So again, come back to that quantum thinking. This is what quantum leadership for me is. That's a new phrase that's just popped into my head. You have to separate yourself in order to be able to support the masses. And then with this viewpoint, develop skills, thinking and processes which enable you to inspire more people to go and be the leader they wish they had, to go and be the leader they know the world needs right now in these times of uncertainty that we're experiencing, these constant times of change. So you be that person and you inspire others in order to do it themselves. And as I've always heard it and said it to others, the sole responsibility of a leader is to create more leaders. Because actually, if you create a shift in the other 95%, one more steps up, one more steps up, one more steps up, and all of a sudden humanity starts to shift in a very, very beautiful way.
Yeah, that's a great point. And obviously, me with my military background, I believe the forces have a great way of developing leadership. And it's through arduous environments, because I feel like that's where you truly start to see leaders and leadership. Now, in the British Army, we did like a 4-week intensive, they called it leadership cadres, where you would do very hard PT, very late nights, early mornings, messed around for no good reason apart from just to see how you react and what you do. But as well, there was always sort of great structured content where you would have to sort of go away and learn about someone in history who'd been a great leader, and then sort of define their great leadership characters. And my course officer at the time, I remember it very clearly, every week, every Friday, they got you in and basically we had like a sort of course rundown. And on my second week, he accused me of being just a good Indian. Now, as someone like myself, I've always classed myself as a chief. So he did it as a reverse psychology, what made me say, next week, I'm showing you that I'm a chief and not just a good Indian. And I ended up sort of doing really well on the end of the course and finishing well and getting promoted. But have you ever heard that phrase before, chiefs and Indians? It's a phrase that we use in the military quite a lot. Some people are good Indians and some people are chiefs. But there is a difference. There
is, and you hear there's too many chiefs, not enough Indians, in this way around.
Yeah.
And I think when you swing too far the other way, you end up with too many Indians and not enough people kind of giving a bit of a steer. So it's fine. It's the key thing is about finding the right balance at the right time. And also when you go back into and just looking on the bookshelf, How to Grow Leaders, John Adair. Again, military background, is making, you've got situational leadership and it sits inside that as well. And there's going to be times when you've got different experts going in. You look at in the military special forces, you've got different elements of special forces. These guys are explosive experts. You've got engineers or whatever. Snipers. They've all got their specialist thing.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to send an explosive expert in potentially to be a sniper, or put him in charge of a sniper unit because the thinking's not going to be right. And excuse my ignorance. I mean, I'm not military.
No.
So it's being the right leader at the right time, and it's also being the right Indian at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and being able to switch and pivot when you need to.
No, it's a great point. And why is it you think we see the best of people in hard times or hard situations? What is it that sort of brings out that 10% in us?
One thing, and I think this was again a military quote, I have no idea who said it, is you do not rise to the level of expectation, you fall back to the level of training. Simple as that.
Wow.
And we all think, at that moment of crisis, we're going to be this superhuman, human being. You're going to put our pants over our trousers and our cape's going to go on and we're going to fly out the window. No, it doesn't happen like that. Most people, human nature will crumble under that point of pressure, unless you've done the training to actually make it happen.
Good point.
What makes people give that 10%? Why? Okay, key thing, challenge is tension and friction. life exists under a certain level of tension. If I put, I'm pointing at my windowsill because I've got seed propagators growing vegetables on my office window. I'll show you in a minute. If you put a seed into darkness, you put it, you bury it, and it's that whole idea. Sometimes you feel like you're buried, but maybe you're actually being a seed being planted. The seed goes into the ground, you pack the soil down, it's the right environment. That seed has to push its way through however much soil has been pressed down on top of it. It needs that tension. Now, if you try and remove the seed casing from that plant as it's growing too early, you'll actually kill the plant. It needs the tension of that seed case to actually strengthen its leaves so it can then burst out and then become as strong as it needs to. So you need tension. In order to get a car moving, you need friction. The wheels on the tarmac, you get traction, creates friction. You need that movement. You need that. But again, it's curated tension. You look at the temperatures that a car engine gets up to when you're actually using it. When you look at the force and the speed of all those parts working together synchronistically, that's friction. But it's curated friction. The tension piece, and look at the army puts their guys under immense amounts of tension to get it right. Why? Because they don't want you to think. They want it to be instinctual. No different to a tennis player. That ball's traveling at 110 kilometers an hour or whatever. You don't even think that quickly to hit the ball. It comes instinct. So when we get into a crisis situation, we need to be having that curated tension before. Why? To make our products obsolete, to make our services obsolete. So actually we're constantly upgrading that stuff. So that when we actually land in a moment like this and someone says, what's going on? You've already made 3 actions because instinctually you know what the right thing to do. Increase the volume of your podcast, increase the content going out, change the way your content goes out, change the way you connect with your people, and get it right. You need to be practiced. Okay, what happens in this? I'm not talking about setting up paranoia or constantly thinking negative. It's like, well, actually, what else can I do to be generating more communications and relationships? And the moment it happens, you just switch it on and you keep moving, and you'll give more than that 10% you alluded to just now.
I think you make some great points there, and we chatted offline about it, but we're going to chat online now. Some businesses are making massive mistakes, and by mistakes, I don't mean they're doing anything wrong. They're just not doing anything. Why is that such a terrible move in the current crisis?
I think the problem is potentially some of the languaging. So we look at social distancing. It's wrong. We've been social distancing for years already, which is why we're in the fucking problem we're in. It's physical distancing. Okay, we need to keep 2 meters apart. We need to stay at home for the right, and that's all the right things. Okay, social distancing does not mean disconnecting from your customers. Social distancing does not mean disconnecting from your suppliers and your vendors. Social distancing does not mean cutting yourself off from the world entirely, because we're all going through this situation at the same time. If
100%.
you start cutting yourself off from your suppliers, actually, and they go out of business because you haven't had that conversation with them, when you go back and open the doors to your shop again, you're going to have a different problem when you arrive, because the people that were supplying you with the goods are now no longer there, and you haven't got any goods to sell because you're not being, you haven't got the product. Again, the customers, how are you staying relevant? How are you staying remembered? And how are you staying retailing?
That's class.
And you've got to be pushing this out. Whether it's social media, whether it's, we're a restaurant and we suddenly start doing online cooking courses, whether it's, you were talking about one of the guys in the hotels where we're talking about doing little interviews with the guys we work with, so people can see the story behind why people come to work and do what they do. So you are strengthening that human bond and that human relationship.
I think it's a great point, and I've got a great partnership with a guy who supplies me with my coffee. Now he's a veteran himself, and he owns a Green Beret coffee company, and I've been sort of dabbling in the art of TikTok. And yesterday I made like a bit of a how to make a perfect brew. So I did like a TikTok video, and obviously sent it to him and said, there you go, mate. And he absolutely loves it, because obviously I've mentioned his product in the TikTok video. It took me 60 seconds, but it strengthened our bond, because I'm still thinking about him and his brand, even in a time when I'm not taking it out in the hills and serving other people it. because I can't do that, but I can still consume it myself. But it still strengthens our bond, and I think that's what a lot of people, they're not getting it. And I'm just going to throw them under the bus, really. We've got this great initiative in Darlington called Love Darlington, and the person who runs that account really needs a long, hard look at themselves after this is over, because their whole thing is set up to help the local Darlington shops, small business owners, independents, even the larger chains, attract more people into the town. Now, I've been out running and I'm tagging local businesses in on my Instagram posts, just saying, see you when the shops reopen, hope everything's okay. But I'm also tagging this Love Darlington thing in, and no one is monitoring their social media. Like, it's just an absolute, it's a fail, because I think, well, what else can you be doing? Because, I don't know, 80% say of the UK is currently sat at home on furlough or can't go to work for whatever reasons. Why do you think people have this, I'm going to pull the drawbridge mentality?
It's the self-sustaining ecosystem rather than the self-sustaining ecosystem. And what I mean by this is, when I teach feedback and I teach certain parts of coaching skills and leadership to people, I always ask this question: who's the most important person in the conversation?
Yeah.
So when you're delivering feedback as a leader, when you're coaching someone and asking them the right question, who is the most important person in the conversation? The person you're talking to. The moment that someone does something or says something or interacts with you as a leader, and the moment you start saying, you're making me look bad, you're making my team look bad, you're making my performance look bad, you are now the most important person in the conversation, not the person you need to be speaking to. So the challenge is we go into this crisis situation, the business feels like they might shut down or they've got a problem. Oh, I've got a problem. My business is damaged. I can't do this. I can't do that. It's all about me, 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 me. The world doesn't work that way. And the moment you do that, you pull the drawbridge up and you shut shop. Why? Because you don't think you can do anything better. Well, actually, when we change the question and say, how can I serve these people in my community at a higher level? How can I take this situation and turn it into a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block? Now, what is it I'm learning right now that enables me to actually come back from this situation twice as strong? And you almost get into that anti-fragility situation of coming back stronger from the impact or whatever the situation is. So the moment we start making it about me, 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 is the self-sustaining ecosystem. I don't want to do anything in case I look like I failed. I don't want to do anything in case I look like I didn't bolster my finances enough to weather this storm. And we withdraw.
People don't draw on experience enough. Like, people don't look back at key moments in history or key battles or anything like that and think, how can I apply that to business? And I mentioned it yesterday when I did another podcast, but I've just watched a fascinating series on Netflix called Ottoman, which is about when the Ottoman Empire basically took Constantinople. But there's so many cat and mouse moves in that whole siege, when I'm thinking to myself, I need to think like the Sultan. Do you know what I mean? I need to think, right, COVID-19 is the walls of Constantinople. Now, how do I maneuver my fleet and my army round that to its weak point? Because everything has a weak point. Everything does. And how do I make this thing fight on two fronts? What's your take? Have you got any sort of key interesting points where you always come back to, where you think, oh yeah, it's a bit like this situation? I know a lot of people have read The Art of War and things like that, or podcasts, similar sort of stuff.
You actually alluded to one of the relevant things, and there's multiple tangents to go. The Art of War: strategy without tactics tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Yeah, with Sun Tzu, and we've been saying this, and then strategy without tactics is the long road to victory. So you have to have both of those elements in play.
Yeah.
One is, what your tactics are. Social media is doing all these things. Strategy is actually how am I moving out of this. But taking the time to actually get strategic and put the tactics in place. So what we've done, or what I've done, is I also have a part-time job. I have a daytime job over here that brings me a salary. I also have my own coaching practice over here.
Yeah.
Okay, on a weekly basis, I am talking to Darren, the founder of the company that I work in.
Yeah.
I'm talking to him on a daily basis about different elements we're working on. So we pivoted our content immediately. So I'm doing more live content. I'm doing more free content. Okay, how am I making it work for these guys? Okay, how do I change? How do I redeploy the skills I've got in a different way that creates more content and more contacts? That's prime thing. But you know, this stuff isn't original. This stuff is being done by different people in different ways and different formats. There are no new ideas under the sun. We know this. So earlier on, you talked about the leadership carters that you went through. Okay, go away and study these leaders. Well, it doesn't matter which leader, which event. It could be Samuel Pepys, you know, reading the text of Samuel Pepys in the plague time. Same stuff we're going through right now. If you look at, I'm looking at my bookshelf, I've got Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. You know, he talks about how he studied Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and from Edison and these people. And he would mentally ask these people a question in his head to see what they would say. So when you studied these individuals and these previous events, you can go and question, well, if I was the Sultan in the Ottoman Wars, what would I do right now? Or what are my actual options? You know, if I put myself in the Sultan's shoes looking back over the battle, what decisions would I have changed? Okay, I would have done this. Okay, how does that reapply right now? Because and I say to people, as a leadership coach, the quality of your day is dictated by the quality of the questions that you start it with. So when you ask yourself the right questions, you will get a better answer. And then you can make a decision. Okay, well, actually, I've got this situation. I've got this crisis. What else can I do? Well, I can change this. Okay, what else can you do on top of that? Well, I can change this. How do you make that 2 times better? How do you learn from that the day after? I was going to say the one last question from on that is, you know, is actually, when are you spending time reflecting on the previous day to make sure you're improving it continuously through this whole situation?
Yeah, you brought us a lot of great points there, and one thing I sort of want to talk about is why do some businesses, employers only ever focus on like negativity, like highlighting mistakes and not highlighting, like, I don't, like, it blows my mind why people would do that. Like, it's almost like in a way of having a slave army and saying, well, we've lost another battle, well done. Not good enough, gents. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make anyone fight any harder. So all it does is it makes people roll their eyes and walk away. And I just feel like, how are they going to ever think, well, tomorrow I'm going to go into a place which I don't own, which I never own, I've got no stake in it. Why am I going to go in and be 10%, 5%, 1% better? How and why do you think companies should get rid of highlight negativity and focus on positivity?
One is it's human behavior. We're hardwired to see the negative. The challenges you have with that, though, especially in the English language, and this comes back to neuroscience, or a little bit of neuroscience, they will always be telling you what not to do. They'll always be telling you the mistakes you made. You know, in certain businesses, you have quality controls. They say, well, you got a 95% threshold or whatever. Don't do this. Don't do that. These are the mistakes you made. This is the problem you caused. And all you're doing is you're constantly looking at the negative. But when you look at the language, the way that your brain is actually wired is it visualizes the action first before it tells you yes or no, or to do it or not do it. So if you tell a child, don't drop the plate, what the brain actually computes is drop the plate, because that's the visual bit and the bit it can reference, and then it puts the don't on the end of it. So the moment you say don't drop the plate, the child hears drop the plate, freaks out, drops the plate, and then it hears the don't. So businesses, from a neurological point of view, are doing this constantly. Don't do this, don't do that, you're rubbish at this, you're not very good at this. So we're constantly kind of ratcheting up the negativity. Whereas actually all you have to do is flip it around. Yeah. Ask your people, what do you need to remember to do? What is it that's important about making sure that we get this part right? Yeah. What's the impact of this being done this way round? Super kind of simple way of doing this, you know, is we always saying, don't forget your keys. Yeah. Well, we're telling people don't forget the keys, but the power word is actually in the action, the forgetting.
Yeah.
So all we're doing is reinforcing the forgetting nature of the element we want to avoid.
Interesting.
So if you're telling people, make sure you remember your keys. Okay, I'll remember the keys, remember the keys. I'm telling them what to do. I'm replacing the negative focus with a positive habit or positive intention or action that builds it up. Same with leaders. This is what we need to remember to do. This is what we need to include. When we do this, it looks like this. If we, not even negative, we can say, when we do this, it looks like this for the customer. If we do this, it looks like this for the customer. Which one of those two things would you prefer to do? If you were the customer, what would you prefer to happen? I'd prefer it to be like this. Okay, great, crack on.
No, it's a great point that you raise, and I think if when I have a large business, I will remove all forms of negativity from the environment, because I just do not feel like it creates an environment where people think, I know it's not mine, and I know I'll never own it, but you know what? I love working there. I'm made to feel part of it, and I'm going to get stuck in, and I'm going to give that. Even if someone gives you 1-2% more than they would have, that's 1-2% more than they have to give. And I hear these stupid, I read like job posts or whatever, and people will put like in a job post, must be prepared to give 110%. And I just feel like how can you even ask that of someone it's not their business? They'll never give you 110. And if you ask yourself as an owner, are you giving 110? No, I give about 95. So how are you saying that you want another 15% from an individual who's got no stake in it? It was never their idea, won't benefit from it if it becomes a multinational corporation? I don't understand. It's almost like a buzzword, isn't it? Must give 110%. Where do you think that's come from?
I think it makes people feel like they're actually putting the right thing on the job post. Because at the end of the day, if you look statistically, I think it's 87% of people are not engaged in the work that they're doing. Especially in corporations and businesses. So they're only, if you're lucky, giving 60% levels of input to the business. What they're doing with the other 40%. But that's okay, because the other 95% of people around them are only doing the same anyway. So everyone's kind of fitting some sort of norm.
Yeah.
The bit that creates that 100, and you can't give 110%. How can you give 110%?
Didn't make sense.
No, you're either using 100% of your energy or 100% of your time or 100% of your focus. That's it. You can't give 110% of your focus, because shit, your brain would explode.
Yeah.
So when we're working,
exist.
it doesn't. And so when we're working in the spaces, is especially for founders and new businesses and exciting stuff, or is that necessity? Why are these people creating these businesses? What's important to them about the product or service that they're providing? Okay, let's go and find people where this product is important to them. I'll give you an example: hospices. Hospices are vitally important. If you go and look at the population of the people that work in hospices or volunteer there, predominantly, I think the neighbours are drilling, so I can hear this vibration.
No, I can't hear it. It's all right.
If you listen to people or speak to people in the hospice environment and charity environment, it's because they've been touched by that environment. They've had someone in the hospice, it's been important to them, they feel like they need to contribute back, and therefore they want to do that. Same with businesses. People will give 100% of their energy if that product or service is relevant to them. It is part of their cause, it's part of their purpose. And they feel like by giving it, it's meaningful to them because it's full of meaning. Yeah. And by acting and working in that space, it's now full of purpose to somebody else. So therefore it's purposeful. It's aligned to them and it's aligned to the business. They will give 100%.
Yeah, no, you raise a great point. Who would you sort of say, who at the moment is that upcoming sort of person giving out the constant message all the time, the right stuff, and who would be from the past? Who would you say was a strong leader? For me, I would say Gary V at the moment. Everything I see that he does, all the stuff that the knowledge that he drops, and his sort of his leadership style, and the fact that he looks like he gives absolutely everybody his time, and the thing is, he doesn't have to do that because he's there, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He's at the top of the tree, and his time, he could charge a lot of money for his time. And sort of going back, I'd probably have to have a bit of a think of it, because I feel like there's wartime leaders and there's peacetime leaders, and the two in their own element work really well. So, example, someone like Winston Churchill was a great wartime leader, but actually after the conflict wasn't much cop. Who would you sort of say?
Man, that's a big question to be
honest. Huge, I know.
And I'm very much I have a very much a magpie mentality when it comes to thinking. And I think we have this huge amount of information, virtual mentors, real dead, all of those things to put on. I am a big advocate for the content that Tom Bilyeu puts out from Impact Theory.
Right.
Phenomenal stuff in there because of some of the thinkers he gets on there. From people like Peter Diamandis, David Eagleman is a super interesting one. He's done some series on Netflix, neuroscientist.
Right.
And I'm looking at my bookshelf, you've got everything. Crikey, I've got Jamie Will, who wrote Stealing Fire, John Adair, How to Grow Leaders.
Yeah.
Ray Dalio, Principles, Napoleon Hill, and Simon Sinek up here. So again, you're coming up here. Simon Sinek will start with why. Felix Dennis is a name that I haven't heard banded around too much. This guy wanted to finish up his life with no money, and I think he ended up, he wanted to try and spend all his money. He still ended up with 900 million in his bank account in accessible funds.
Wow.
But just some absolute peaches and nuggets in there of valuable content. But it depends where you are in your life and what it is you want to extract. And I think there'll be a relevant nugget in each of those people to where you are on your journey, and to you psychologically, in your psyche, you as an individual. I highly recommend Tom Bilyeu to go and meet some of those people for 45 to 60 minutes and to get some insight. Leaders for me, he says, looking up his bookshelf, one of my biggest heroes was Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So when you kind of looking at and I didn't realize a lot of this until later on. He was coming out of China, coming to America, huge amounts of racism. He was trying to shift the world perspective on Asian culture because it was horrendously stereotyped at that point in time.
Yeah.
You look at what he did for martial arts. You look at the kind of the biography. The guy will be doing leg curls, bicep curls, and reading a book at the same time. When he was in hospital after he had his back injured, he was still reading and doing these things because he was still. And you look at kind of the wartime leader. When we are in a crisis situation, when we are in a problem, okay, what are we doing to make sure that we continue to move forward? That hardiness. It's not about what's the word I'm looking for? Resilience for me. It's about that hardiness. When the snow comes down, when the rain comes down, when the shit hits the fan, do I continue to move forward regardless of what is actually bouncing off me?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'll definitely check out those people that you mentioned. It sounds dead interesting. I just wonder why it is as we get older, we want to take in these people. I wish I'd have took them in my early 20s, instead of, I don't know, being fascinated with cars and getting drunk. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's almost like, I wouldn't say I wasted my young life. I didn't do that, but I wish I could go back now and just say, just check this person out, or read this, or do this. Do you know what I mean? Like, just trust me, you'll thank me. you'll thank yourself. Nathan, I feel like it's been a great introduction, only an introduction into yourself and the products and the services that you provide. We're going to sort of look to close down the show with the COVID-19 5 Watt special.
Yep.
COVID-19 has forced a lot of people to change routine, and I feel like routine is something, as a race of people, we a lot of people need routine. So for the first one, what does your day look like?
Super structured. My day starts with one-to-one conversation with either with Darren, the team leader, business leader, or getting into my email to making sure that I've got that structure. That's from a work point of view. Yeah. And then it's getting into these sorts of conversations and making sure I'm ticking off those things to do, so we're staying relevant and we're out there and staying remembered. shift back before that, though, so that's the work day. You're talking anywhere between 5:30 and 6:30 up, moving into my day, and it's predominantly meditation, clear my head, because I've got a very active brain. And it's, you know, I've got my own business. We've got the business we work over here. Create the clarity to calm the brain, so actually you can see the to-do list starting to come up, and then you can start to move the ideas as you then get into the day at 8:30. You can then start ticking those off and taking the steps that you need to take, not start your day at 8:30 and then wonder what the hell you're doing for the first hour of the day.
No, yeah, you can't just send the troops in, can you? You've got to think and plan. Yeah, again, that's a fair point. Second one, what workouts are you doing? No, that doesn't have to be a physical workout, a mental workout.
Physical workout, we have been doing a little bit of Joe Wicks, which has been good, which has broken the back of a few things for me.
Nice.
But I also have an allotment, so I grow my own fruit and vegetables, a certain amount.
Nice.
I walk into the allotment and back again, which is about 2.5K a day. But I'm doing that with a 20 kilo or 25 kilo bag of horse poo on my shoulders.
Nice.
Yeah, and Hastings is hilly as well,
yeah,
so that walk back is hard.
That's caveman. I heard this saying the other day, caveman CrossFit. That's
yeah. And I look like a caveman by the time I come back, I tell you.
Yeah, functional fitness is what it's about. Third one, what have you started? Have you started anything new in the current situation?
Podcasting for one, for the business I'm in, so we're doing that.
Yeah.
We're doing also more live content, so we're delivering a live training every single day for all the time that we're on lockdown. So 20 minutes of content and 10 minutes of Q&A, which is really pushing my concepts as well.
Amazing. What have you stopped? For me, I was a big cinema goer. Not just because I like to go to the cinema and eat popcorn and sweets, but actually, in my mind, like you, my mind is almost like it's constantly on fire. So when I go in the cinema, I can just sit there and a time for reflection and think and plan. I've often gone and watched a movie and thought, I've really got no interest in this movie, but it's a great moment just to sit and just have a bit of time to yourself. Is there anything that you've stopped doing?
What have we stopped doing? Drinking coffee. And actually, no, I like going to nice coffee shops and
100%.
And having a cappuccino. And having someone else make me a cappuccino, you know, it's a luxury I think we take for granted. And right now, I don't have that. So, coffee's been off the agenda. Yeah,
no, that's again, we there's a lot of things that we do take for granted, and I think one thing that will change, and I hope it does change, is I know a lot of people who live for next week or live for next weekend, instead of saying, I have the chance to do that now, but I'm not going to because next weekend's coming. Now, we've all had that taken away from us. So I'm hoping a few more people will think a little bit more like, oh, no, I'm doing it now. Do you know what I mean? Be a bit more living the now. And I don't know who said it, but they call it Someday Island. Have you heard that before? Someday Island. I live on Someday Island. Fifth and final one. What's the first thing you're going to do after lockdown?
Drink a coffee.
straight down to the coffee shop.
And do you know what? We're spending time as a family on the allotment. We're spending time in the garden. We were already homeschooling before this started anyway, so we're doing a lot of those things, and it's really testing our limits being in that close proximity.
Amazing.
So the one will be, just to walk out, even potentially on my own, to go and sit in a coffee shop and have that coffee in that downtime. But then also at the same time, equally, to make sure that my wife's got that space as well. Because we know as human beings, although we came together and made that commitment to each other, we still need our separateness. Yeah,
100%.
So time for me to breathe, time for wife to breathe, not necessarily in that order. Might be the wife first. And do that. Just chill out.
Fair play. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Nathan Simmonds. Fantastic outlook on life. Great content on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about leadership, he's the man to go and speak to. Where can people find you, Nathan?
They can find me at nathansimmondscoaching.com. Super easy. Go there. Do you know what? I've got a free email course, which I'm plugging through there.
There you go.
Five pillars of leadership, which you think you probably don't need. You actually do need to go there. It's free. And send me an email. Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's the best place. You want to talk leadership. You want to talk personal development. You want to talk about moving your career. Come and have a conversation.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Nathan. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I certainly have. You can always learn, and I believe this time now, COVID-19, we're under a little bit of stress, a little bit of pressure, but that's good because that creates people to innovate, think, and come outside the box. That's been the Eagle Podcast. Nathan, thanks very much for your time. Cheers. Bye.
Sweet. Bye.
Bye-bye.